Welcome to Housewives Tonight, your front row seat to the biggest headlines, unexpected turns, and exclusive behind-the-scenes insights from the world of reality TV. Stay ahead with every story that matters. Today, we're looking at a reality TV marriage that once appeared almost impossible to break, until the money problems, legal battles, custody disputes, police interventions, and public accusations became impossible to ignore. Kim Zolciak and Kroy Biermann built a family in front of television cameras. They appeared to have the kind of reality TV romance audiences love. Unexpected, glamorous, complicated, and big enough to become its own show. But according to the information described in the source transcript, that story eventually transformed into something dramatically different. The conflict wasn't simply about two people falling out of love. It became a battle involving a reported $1.8 million in debt, the future of their family home, competing custody demands, allegations of gambling and financial recklessness, repeated police involvement, and eventually a separate legal dispute connected to Kim's new relationship. And the deeper you look at the timeline, the more complicated the story becomes. Because this wasn't one sudden collapse. It was a series of pressures building over years. And by the time Kim and Kroy officially began filing for divorce, the financial and emotional foundation underneath their family had already been severely damaged. So, how did a relationship that began with such a dramatic reality TV romance reach this point? Let's go back to the beginning. The romance that became a reality TV empire. When Kim Zolciak first became a familiar face on reality television, she was already establishing a very recognizable identity. She appeared during the early days of the Real Housewives of Atlanta, where she quickly became known for her distinctive personality, glamorous image, blonde wigs, luxury lifestyle, and unapologetic approach to fame. At that stage, Kim was raising her two older daughters, Brielle and Ariana, while building her own place within the reality TV world. Her personal life was already part of her television story, but everything changed when she met Kroy Biermann. According to the source transcript, the two met at a charity event in 2010 when Kroy was playing professional football for the Atlanta Falcons. The contrast between them immediately made the relationship interesting. Kim had become known for her larger-than-life television personality. Kroy appeared more grounded, athletic, and family-oriented. Their relationship developed quickly, and because Kim was already a television personality, their romance became part of the public conversation almost immediately. Then came the children. The couple welcomed their first son together, Kroy Jr., followed by their second son, Cash. In 2012, Kim and Kroy married in a lavish ceremony at their Georgia home. The wedding became part of their reality TV story, eventually leading into the family-focused series Don't Be Tardy. And then Kroy took another major step. He legally adopted Kim's two older daughters. That decision was significant because it transformed what had begun as a romantic relationship into a larger family unit. Later, the family expanded again with the arrival of twins. For years, viewers were invited into this household and watched the family navigate everyday life, fame, parenting, business, luxury, and the unusual pressures that come with having cameras around. From the outside, the family appeared to have built something substantial. There was the mansion. There was the television career. There were businesses. There was professional football. There were children. There was celebrity visibility. But the lifestyle that looked so successful on television came with an enormous cost. And eventually, the financial side of that lifestyle became impossible to separate from the marriage itself. When the money started running out, for years, Kim and Kroy's household operated within an ecosystem built around income from television, endorsements, business ventures, and other opportunities connected to their public profiles. Kim developed products and partnerships involving areas such as skincare, hair care, fashion, and social media promotion. RHOA transitioned away from his football career and became increasingly involved in family responsibilities and household affairs. That arrangement could work as long as the money continued flowing. But reality television careers do not last forever. In 2021, Don't Be Tardy was canceled after 8 seasons. That moment became especially important in the story described by the source transcript, because the family's steady television income was suddenly gone. And when a household has been built around a certain level of spending, losing a major income source can create consequences long after the final paycheck arrives. The source describes a family accustomed to maintaining an expensive lifestyle while facing increasing financial pressure. Then the numbers began appearing in legal records. According to the transcript, public records showed that Kim and RHOA faced more than $1.1 million in unpaid federal taxes, in addition to state tax liabilities and other outstanding obligations. The total verified debt described in the source was approximately $1.8 million. That number is important because it helps explain why the later divorce was about far more than romance. There was a financial crisis sitting directly underneath the relationship, and once money became scarce, every disagreement about spending, responsibility, property, and future plans carried much greater consequences. The source transcript describes competing accusations from both sides. Kim reportedly blamed RHOA for financial mismanagement and for failing to find employment after his NFL career that could replace the income he once earned. RHOA, meanwhile, allegedly pointed toward Kim's spending habits, gambling, and luxury lifestyle. These were not minor disagreements. They went directly to the question of who was responsible for the family's financial collapse. And when both spouses believe the other person caused the crisis, finding a path forward becomes incredibly difficult. The mansion becomes the battleground. Perhaps nothing represented the family's rise more clearly than their Alpharetta mansion. The home was not simply a place to live. It was part of the family's television identity. It represented success, luxury, and the lifestyle that viewers had watched unfold over the years. But as the financial pressure intensified, that same property became one of the biggest sources of conflict. According to the source transcript, foreclosure proceedings began after mortgage payments fell behind. The possibility that the home could be auctioned created an entirely different level of urgency. This wasn't just about losing a valuable property. For a family with children, losing the home meant losing stability. And for Kim and RHOA, the mansion had also become part of their public identity. The source describes legal efforts to delay foreclosure and attempts to refinance or sell the property. But even when immediate foreclosure action was delayed, the larger problem remained. Debt was still there. The mortgage problem was still there. Tax obligations were still there. And legal expenses were increasing. The family was essentially trying to solve a financial crisis while simultaneously entering a marital crisis. That combination can become devastating. The source describes reports that the property was listed for sale more than once, with complicated liens and title issues creating additional obstacles. The house that once symbolized everything the family had achieved was now becoming a symbol of everything they were struggling to hold on to. And then came the divorce filings. May 2023, the marriage officially breaks. On May 8, 2023, according to the source transcript, Kim and RHOA filed for divorce in Fulton County, Georgia, on the same day. That detail matters. It suggested that neither side intended to quietly step away. Both were prepared to establish their own legal positions immediately. And those positions were dramatically different. Kim described the marriage as irretrievably broken. She sought primary physical and legal custody of the 4 minor children. She also sought child support, alimony, and control over the marital residence. But her allegations went beyond the standard language of a divorce filing. The transcript says Kim raised concerns about RHOA's psychological and behavioral issues and alleged a gambling problem that she believed had damaged the family's financial security. RHOA responded with allegations of his own. He reportedly accused Kim of erratic behavior, reckless spending, and gambling. He sought sole legal and physical custody of the children, exclusive possession of the home, and restrictions intended to prevent marital assets from being dissipated. He also sought psychological evaluations for Kim. So within the opening stage of the divorce, the central question was no longer simply, can this marriage be saved? The question had become, which version of this marriage will the court believe? And more importantly, what would happen to the children and the family's remaining assets? The court appointed a guardian ad litem to represent the children's interests, according to the source. That meant the family's internal problems were now being examined through a legal process focused on the welfare of the children. At that point, the divorce was no longer just a private disagreement between 2 adults. It had become a formal legal battle, and every filing had the potential to affect custody, money, property, and reputation. The divorce that suddenly disappeared. Then something happened that left fans confused. In July 2023, according to the transcript, Kim and RHOA dismissed their divorce petitions. After the explosive beginning, the legal battle appeared to stop. Naturally, people wondered whether the couple had reconciled. Had they decided to save their marriage? Had the family come first? Had the 2 of them finally realized that divorce was making an already difficult situation even worse? The source transcript presents a much more complicated explanation. According to the claims described there, the dismissal may have been less about romantic reconciliation and more about survival. Legal fees were mounting. The home was still in danger. Debt remained unresolved. And the family had children whose lives were being affected by the conflict. For a brief period, Kim and RHOA reportedly appeared to present a united front. They were seen together. There were family outings. There were social media appearances that suggested they were attempting to repair the relationship. But appearances can be very different from reality. The underlying problems had not disappeared. The debt remained. The accusations remained. The distrust remained. And the financial pressure remained. So even if the divorce petitions had temporarily disappeared from the court docket, the problems that created them had not. The reconciliation was fragile. And before long, that fragile piece began to break apart. The second divorce filing, by August 2023, according to the transcript, RHOA filed for divorce again. This time, the legal posture became even more aggressive. The conflict expanded beyond the question of whether the marriage should end. Now there were disputes over the house, debt, custody, property, and the preservation of marital assets. RHOA reportedly alleged that Kim was attempting to sell luxury possessions without his permission or court approval. Kim, in response, reportedly accused RHOA of financial incompetence and emotional abuse and disputed his handling of financial matters. The conflict was becoming increasingly complicated. Imagine living under the same roof with someone while both of you are preparing legal arguments against the other. Every disagreement can become evidence. Every financial transaction can become relevant. Every conversation can potentially be interpreted through the lens of litigation. And that is where the emotional consequences become especially severe. The source describes allegations of monitoring, recording, harassment, and an increasingly hostile household environment. Both sides reportedly accused the other of contributing to an atmosphere that was unhealthy for the children. At this point, the divorce was no longer moving in a straight line. It had become a series of legal battles layered on top of one another. When the police started showing up, the next phase of the story took the conflict out of court and brought it directly into the home. According to the transcript, police were repeatedly called to the Alpharetta property for disputes, welfare checks, and other incidents. And eventually, body camera footage became part of the public discussion. This is where the story becomes especially uncomfortable. Reality television normally gives viewers an edited version of conflict. There are producers. There are cameras. There is music. There is a beginning, middle, and end. Police body camera footage is completely different. It captures people during moments when they are under pressure and dealing with real-world consequences. According to the source, the footage showed Kim in highly emotional states, crying and asking officers to document her perspective. RHOA, meanwhile, reportedly described his own concerns and accused Kim of behavior he believed threatened the stability of the household. Neither side's account should automatically be treated as the complete truth simply because it was captured on camera. That's an important distinction. Body camera footage can show what happened in a particular moment. It doesn't automatically explain everything that happened before or after. But what the footage did demonstrate, according to the source, was how deeply the relationship had deteriorated. This was no longer just a celebrity divorce being discussed in entertainment media. Police were now becoming involved in disputes at the family home. And that changed the public perception of the situation. The family that viewers once watched for entertainment was now dealing with circumstances that were much more serious than reality TV drama. The human cost behind the headlines. It's easy to focus on the money. $1.8 million in reported debt. A mansion facing foreclosure. Legal fees. Court filings. But behind every number were people. Kim and RHOA had children, and the children were living inside the consequences of the adults' conflict. The source repeatedly emphasizes custody disputes and the involvement of a guardian representing the children's interests. That makes the story different from a typical celebrity breakup. When two famous people separate, their public images may take a hit. But when children are involved, the stakes are much higher. Every argument about the home can affect where the children live. Every financial problem can affect their stability. Every custody allegation can change how one parent views the other. And when those disagreements become public, the children are surrounded by a story they did not create. That is perhaps one of the most difficult aspects of the entire situation. The cameras that once documented family celebrations had been replaced by court documents and police footage. The mansion that once represented family success became the center of a foreclosure fight. And the marriage that once appeared to be a reality TV success story became a legal battle over who could remain in control of what was left. RHOA's public message. As the relationship continued to collapse, RHOA increasingly presented himself publicly as someone trying to escape an unsustainable situation. One social media message mentioned in the source became particularly notable. RHOA reportedly wrote that God had saved him. That statement reflected how dramatically his public presentation had changed. The man who had once appeared alongside Kim as part of a reality TV couple was now describing the separation in almost spiritual terms. But again, context matters. A public statement represents the perspective of the person making it. It does not automatically establish every allegation made against the other person. And the same principle applies to Kim's accusations. Both sides had their own narratives. Both believed they had been wronged, and both were fighting for control over their future. The marriage ends, but the conflict doesn't. One of the most revealing elements of this story is that the end of the marriage did not mean the end of the conflict. In some ways, it created new conflicts. Once the romantic relationship was over, the financial ties remained. The children remained. The property issues remained. The debt remained. The legal proceedings remained. And eventually, new relationships entered the picture. According to the source transcript, Kim began a relationship with businessman Kyle Moans. Rather than bringing peace, that relationship reportedly introduced another layer of legal complications. And this is where the story moves beyond Kim and Croy, because Kyle was involved in his own major divorce dispute, the $100 million legal battle. According to the source, Kyle Moans and his estranged wife, Jillian Green, were involved in a legal battle concerning a family trust and estate reportedly valued at approximately $100 million. That is a staggering figure. And because Kim was now connected to Kyle, Jillian's legal team reportedly became interested in Kim's relationship with him. The issue was not simply romantic. It involved questions about money, transactions, gifts, travel, loans, and possible financial connections. According to the transcript, Jillian's legal team sought information about Kim and Kyle's financial relationship. Then came the subpoena. In late 2025, according to the source, Kim was served while attending her son's football game at a school parking lot. Think about the optics. A reality TV personality who had already spent years dealing with a very public divorce was suddenly pulled into another family's legal battle while attending an ordinary family event. The subpoena reportedly demanded extensive information. The legal team wanted details about financial transactions, gifts, trips, loans, and business connections involving Kim and Kyle. The underlying argument, according to the transcript, was that Kyle may have transferred or mismanaged marital assets in connection with his new relationship. Kim's legal team pushed back. They reportedly argued that the subpoena was unreasonable, oppressive, and designed to embarrass or harass her. Eventually, rather than leaving the issue unresolved, negotiations reportedly resulted in an agreement for Kim to be questioned under oath with privacy protections. And that development adds a strange new chapter to an already complicated story. Kim had spent years dealing with her own divorce. Now, her new relationship was drawing her into another divorce. The pattern that keeps repeating. There is something larger happening in this story that is easy to miss if you only focus on the latest headline. The common thread is not just divorce. It's the collision between relationships, money, fame, and public image. Kim and Croy's relationship began at the intersection of celebrity and romance. Their marriage became part of reality television. Their home became a symbol of success. Their family became part of their public identity. Their financial struggles eventually became public. And when the marriage collapsed, those same public elements became part of the legal conflict. Then Kim entered another relationship, and that relationship became connected to another high-value legal dispute. It's a reminder that celebrity relationships don't exist in a vacuum. When money, businesses, property, children, trusts, and public reputations are involved, one relationship can become connected to several other legal and financial systems. And once those systems collide, separating one problem from another becomes extremely difficult. What really caused the collapse? So, what actually destroyed Kim and Croy's marriage? Based strictly on the information described in the source transcript, there isn't one simple answer. The story presents several factors. There was financial pressure. There were allegations involving gambling. There were disputes over spending. There were disagreements over financial management. There was the loss of their reality show income. There was significant reported tax debt. There was the threat of foreclosure. There were disagreements about custody. There were accusations involving behavior inside the home. And there was an enormous amount of legal pressure. But the most important point may be that these problems reinforced one another. Financial stress can damage a relationship. Relationship conflict can make financial decision-making harder. Legal battles create additional expenses. Those expenses can increase financial stress. And when children and property are involved, the pressure becomes even greater. That creates a cycle. And once that cycle starts, simply deciding to stop fighting doesn't necessarily solve anything. That may help explain why the July 2023 dismissal did not ultimately restore the marriage. The legal filing disappeared temporarily. The underlying problems did not. The mansion's symbolism. There's another reason the family home matters so much in this story. The mansion was essentially the physical representation of the life Kim and RHOA had built. It was large. It was luxurious. It was featured in television. It housed their children. It represented financial success. And eventually, it became associated with debt, foreclosure, legal filings, and marital conflict. That's a powerful transformation. The same walls that once surrounded family celebrations became the setting for arguments and police visits. The home that once demonstrated how far the family had come became one of the central pieces of the legal fight over where they would go next. According to the source, the property was ultimately lost through foreclosure proceedings. If that description is accurate, it represents more than the loss of real estate. It represents the end of an era. The physical place that symbolized the family's reality TV success could no longer protect the family from the consequences of the financial crisis. Fame doesn't erase the numbers. Reality television can create the impression that success is permanent. A mansion appears on television. Designer clothes appear on television. Luxury vacations appear on television. Big family events appear on television, and viewers naturally associate those images with financial security. But income can change. Contracts can end. Businesses can struggle. Taxes still have to be paid. Loans still have to be repaid. And expensive lifestyles don't automatically become less expensive when the income disappears. The source transcript's financial timeline illustrates that disconnect. When Don't Be Tardy ended, the household still had financial obligations. Those obligations didn't disappear with the show. If anything, the loss of recurring television income made them more difficult to manage. And that is why the reported $1.8 million debt became so important to the eventual divorce. It wasn't just a number. It was evidence of a financial system under severe strain. The divorce as a battle for narrative control. There is another important dynamic here. Kim and RHOA were both public figures. They knew the power of a narrative. For years, reality television had taught audiences to understand their lives through competing perspectives. One person says one thing. Another person responds. Then the audience decides whom they believe. The divorce filings created a similar dynamic, but with far higher stakes. Each legal filing became a formal statement of that person's version of events. Each accusation could influence custody. Each financial allegation could affect property. Each claim could shape public opinion. And because the story was already attracting attention, the legal conflict was happening in public. That creates enormous pressure. A private couple can have an argument and move on. A celebrity couple involved in litigation may have that argument described in court documents that can then become entertainment headlines. The line between private conflict and public spectacle disappears. And according to the source, that is exactly what happened here. What about the children? If there is one part of the story that deserves the most attention, it may be the children. The divorce filings reportedly contained competing claims about who should have custody. Both parents sought significant control. The court became involved in evaluating the family situation, and the guardian ad litem was brought in to represent the children's interests. This is an important distinction. A custody dispute is not simply another part of a celebrity argument. It is a legal process focused on children's welfare. That means allegations about spending, gambling, household behavior, and parenting can become much more consequential. For Kim and Kroy, winning a public argument would not necessarily mean winning a custody dispute. The court has its own standards. And ultimately, the children are the people who have to live with the consequences long after the headlines disappear. Where the story stands, based on the source transcript, Kim and Kroy's story has moved far beyond the original divorce filing. The marriage has broken down. The family home became the center of foreclosure and financial disputes. The couple faced reported tax and other debts. Their legal conflict included competing custody demands and serious accusations from both sides. Police were reportedly called to the property multiple times. Body camera footage became part of the public conversation. Kroy presented his separation in strong public terms. Kim moved into a new relationship, and that relationship eventually connected her to another major legal battle involving an estate and trust reportedly worth approximately $100 million. But there is an important distinction between what the transcript presents as established events and what it describes as allegations. Not every accusation made by either side has been independently proven in the material provided. Claims about gambling, financial misconduct, harassment, or asset transfers should therefore be understood as allegations described in the source, not automatically as established facts. That distinction matters, because once a story becomes this public, it becomes very easy for claims to turn into accepted narratives before the underlying facts have been fully established. The bigger reality TV lesson. Kim and Kroy's story ultimately says something uncomfortable about reality television. The cameras can capture the wedding. They can capture the parties. They can capture the arguments. They can capture the vacations. They can capture the glamorous house. But they cannot guarantee what happens after filming ends. The audience sees the lifestyle. The audience doesn't necessarily see the tax returns. The audience doesn't necessarily see the contracts. The audience doesn't necessarily see the debts. And the audience certainly doesn't see every private disagreement that happens behind closed doors. That's why the collapse of a reality TV marriage can feel so shocking. The audience has watched a version of the relationship for years. Then, suddenly, court documents reveal another version. And the contrast can be enormous. For Kim and Kroy, the contrast appears particularly dramatic. They went from a televised romance and family success story to a reported financial crisis, foreclosure battle, divorce litigation, custody disputes, police interventions, and new legal complications. That is not simply a breakup. It is the dismantling of an entire public identity, the questions that remain. And even after everything that has happened, several questions remain. Can former spouses truly separate when they share children, debt, property history, and years of financial entanglement? Can a family rebuild after spending so much time fighting through legal channels? What happens when a new relationship becomes connected to another major financial dispute? And perhaps most importantly, what lessons can be learned from watching a glamorous public lifestyle collide with financial reality? Those questions are bigger than Kim and Kroy. They are part of the reality TV phenomenon itself, because viewers often see the rewards of fame without seeing the risks. And when the rewards disappear, the risks can become very visible very quickly. The final chapter may still be unwritten. The most striking thing about Kim Zolciak and Kroy Biermann's story is that there doesn't appear to be one single moment when everything fell apart. It was gradual. The television career changed. The income changed. Financial pressure grew. Debt accumulated. The home came under threat.